Hello, and welcome to Glory Be. Interesting people and how they pray.
Each week, we chat with interesting people about their lives, their work, and how they pray. I'm Sharon Hanish.
And I'm Mike Malcolm. Our guest this week is my friend, Ernest Neal. Ernest Neal grew up in South Central Oklahoma. Eventually, he got some music degrees from Texas and Oklahoma at TU, and found his way to Christ the King in Tulsa, and is currently the organist and choirmaster at Holy Family Cathedral in Tulsa. That's where Ernest and I really got to know each other. We knew each other vaguely when you were at Christ the King, but we had a lot of adventures at Holy Family. So some were pretty entertaining, I think. So
yeah, definitely.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So what made you, what led you to the cathedral?
What led me to the cathedral?
In your life, you decided, did you wake up one morning and say, I want to be a cathedral organist?
Well, actually, yes. All the way through my studies, I'd wanted to be at a cathedral. Because the music, you can tend to do bigger things at a cathedral.
You specialized in organ. Did you grow up playing the piano?
Yes.
When you were a child? Or?
My dad is a retired Southern Baptist preacher. So as soon as I was capable of getting through a service on a piano, I was playing for his services.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then I went to, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I graduated from high school and went to college on a piano scholarship. And while in college, discovered the organ and switched majors to the organ. And my life has been on a very, very defined, obvious path ever since then.
What is the difference between like a piano and an organ in terms of, I mean, I watch on Sunday, the feet and the, what?
That's probably the biggest difference. A pianist doesn't play notes with their feet. An organist, those pedals down there make pitches, make sounds. And so you have to play with your feet, mostly bass lines, but sometimes melodies are played on the pedals. So that's the big difference. That's what scares piano players.
Yes, yes.
How long did it take to get comfortable with that?
Well, not very long. I gave a recital after one semester of organ lessons. So it didn't take me very long.
So usually, if you're playing a chord up above with your fingers, you're thinking, okay, there's a D in this chord, so I need to find a D down below. Is it?
It just depends on how the music is
what
written.
it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's Palestrina or something, you get those wandering lines. So you've got to really use your brain.
Yes.
That is amazing.
There are some brain twisters.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So do you peek? Do you look down at your feet,
Definitely.
or do you look?
I definitely peek.
Okay. Yeah.
When you first start organ lessons, they don't want you to peek too much, and so there are techniques that you learn, how you learn intervals on the pedals to play with your feet without looking. But after a while, the music gets so complicated that you do have to peek.
Yeah.
I mean, even concert organists, you'll see them take a look down there.
Right.
So you were mentioning cathedral. I didn't know this. Do cathedrals only have organs? Like they don't also have a piano?
No, cathedrals have piano. Some cathedrals have pianos too. Holy Family has a piano, a nice Steinway.
So you play both on a given Sunday?
No, I play just the organ. The piano is used at our Sunday 5:00 Mass, which is a little more casual musically.
Okay.
So the piano is used at that Mass.
Well, Mike, we were talking ahead of time. I know you all have some kind of funny stories, having both worked at Cathedral. And, I think of the organist as, you're there for all the high, Easter, Christmas, I'm interested to hear about those.
Yeah, I was thinking, I have a good organ story.
Okay.
So during the renovation of the cathedral back in 06, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there, they were doing work up above the arches, and little pieces of plaster would drop into those organ pipes that are aimed up, and they'd spin down and stick a valve open. And so during Mass, you'd get, this C sharp, all the way through, because a valve would open, unwittingly, you play a note, it opens the valve, the little piece of dirt or debris gets stuck inside the valve, and then it's stuck open for the rest of Mass.
And that's called a cipher.
A cipher,
yes.
Yeah. And so there were some choir members, I remember, who were quite adept at going up into the pipes, finding the offensive one, popping it out, blowing out the pipe, and then sticking it back in.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure that's not like American Guild of Organists.
No, that is not a what am I trying to say? That is not a procedure that would be.
This is not certified.
That is not a certified procedure, no, for clearing ciphers. But
yeah, but that is quite an amazing organ.
Yes, it is. The cathedral organ is 55 ranks, and there are anywhere between 61 and 72 notes in a rank of pipes. So we will just say whatever 61 times 55 is.
Yeah.
So 3,000 and something. Yeah.
That's a
pipes.
lot.
Yeah. And that's a relatively small organ. Uh-huh. But because of the way it's voiced and because of our acoustics in the cathedral, it does not sound small by any means.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, it's great. It fills it.
Yeah, I love it. It's
and
really fun.
So much variety too.
It does have a lot of variety for the size of it.
Any mood. The trumpets are wonderful, and it's just everything. So,
it's a great organ. It's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah. So some of the fun stories that Ernest and I have seen. Like I remember what must have been your very first Easter Vigil. And Easter Vigils at Holy Family Cathedral are famous across the country for being some of the longest masses that take place in a year in the country. I think one was 4 hours and 27 minutes.
Oh my gosh!
So it was just amazing, long. And rich, beautiful liturgy. We did all the readings, all that stuff. But at the very beginning, if you've never been to an Easter Vigil before, it starts outside usually. There's a fire that's built, and it represents the Christ's return, kind of that first flickering light of the sun as it rises on Easter Sunday. And there's a lot of microphones are on, so the bishop and some of his MCs are speaking into microphones, and you can hear quite clearly in the cathedral everything that they're saying. So for the people outside, it's quiet whispers. But then inside the church, it's loud.
It's very loud.
Yeah. One of the legends of Holy Family's choir, Mary Jo Dixon, told me on your very first Easter Vigil, she said, "Mike, Ernest leaned over to me and said, is it always like this?" Hearing all these whispers and stuff. And Mary Jo said, "Yes, it is. Yes, it is all the time."
Mary Jo was a jewel. She unfortunately passed away last year. She was a lifelong member of the cathedral choir. She had been singing in the choir since she was about 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And she died at, I think, age 73. Mm-hmm. So 60-something years she sang in that choir loft.
Yeah, she gave her life to that choir.
She did.
And in fact, married a choir director, not you, but
the previous choir director, Farrell Dixon.
Yeah.
Who was a saint. Yeah. One of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were married for not too long.
Yeah.
But
plenty.
But he was a great guy, and so they were. Mary Jo was a jewel, a very good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm. So part of your work would be recruiting choir members and getting people to participate and sing. Do you have different choirs that sing for each Mass, or?
On Saturday nights, there's a cantor, and it's me now. It used to be Mary Jo, but now it's me. At the 10 o'clock in the noon Mass on Sunday mornings, the choir, the cathedral choir sings for both Masses.
Okay, wow.
And then at Sunday, 5 o'clock, a cantor and a pianist play and sing. There is no music at the 8 o'clock Mass, of course.
Okay, no, I didn't realize
So
that.
what prep goes into, say, an ordination that comes up?
Months.
I mean, that's huge.
That is huge. Months of preparation. We have an ordination coming up in December, and I've been in contact with the ordinandi since September, probably, working out details, finding out what they want at certain times during the Mass. And these two gentlemen have a lot of good ideas about what they want. So that's been kind of nice because it takes a lot of guesswork out for me and Father John Grant. If the stuff that they're choosing is really good and solid, which it is, they've done a great job at planning their ordination.
So, yeah, Father John Grant being the director of worship for the Diocese of
Yes.
Tulsa. Do you have to negotiate between the ordinands if there's a number of them?
I don't do that. Father Grant does that.
Okay.
Luckily.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
he keeps me out of I'm not in the crossfire.
Yeah. I mean, typically there's just one mass setting. I guess you could mix them up.
Oh, yeah.
But typically,
for the ordinary of the Mass. I tend to not mix and match Masses.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly legitimate and is widely done to mix Mass parts.
Yeah.
I don't normally do that because I like the musical thread that gets woven through a complete Mass setting.
Yeah. And then how hard is it during an ordination again? To take one guy's favorite hymn, you work that into the processional, then another gets picked for the communion meditation.
That's exactly what we do.
Oh, okay.
We try to appease and meet everybody's requests. And
does it sometimes involve having the choir learn something that they've never done before?
Like this coming ordination, there's going to be a lot of Spanish.
Okay.
And so we're working hard on our Spanish.
Nice.
Okay.
It's really, conversational Spanish that we pick up is very, very different from what I call biblical Spanish. There are a lot of words in the Bible and in Psalms and songs that are not what I call conversational Spanish words. Like we have words that we say in English that we sing in songs that we never say, like consubstantial.
Right.
Right. Nobody ever says that, but we say that during Mass. And in some settings of, if you sing the creed, you sing that word.
Yeah.
But that's the interesting part, is learning those, excuse me, learning those words that are not common to us.
Well, are you Catholic? You didn't grow up Catholic.
No, I did not grow up Catholic. I took the long road. I grew up Southern Baptist, wound up in a very traditional Anglican parish in South Florida as an employee, and that raised a lot of questions for me. It raised a lot of questions about worship, how we worship, why we worship, things that we do during worship, and then, of course, the Eucharist. The more I learned about the Eucharist, the less Protestant I became in my own mind and in my own heart. So I started seeking out Catholicism, basically because of the Eucharist and the liturgy. That's what led me to Catholicism, really, was liturgy and music, and then learning about the Eucharist made me want to become Catholic because of the strong belief of Christ's true presence in the Eucharist. Because of the fundamental belief, not a strong belief, the fundamental belief that it is Christ's presence in the Eucharist. And in some Anglicans believe that, others don't. Some believe that it depends on your state of mind as to whether or not transubstantiation actually occurs for you personally. So if you're not in the right state of mind, it may not happen for you, which doesn't work for me because sometimes I'm not in a very good state of mind.
Yeah, right.
And so for me, I need it to be beyond beyond me.
It doesn't depend on you.
Does not depend on me, and that has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's, you raise an interesting point of, about worship and belief. You find yourself with a choir, half a football field away from the altar. And is there a spirituality of prayer that goes into a choir? Because you guys aren't, you're one step ahead. You're praying with the Mass, but you're also passing out. Here's the offertory piece,
I try to do all the passing out beforehand. I try to make their folders in such a way where they literally just turn the page, one page to the next, so that there's not a lot of shuffling and a lot of business going on, so that they can pray as much as possible. Of course, while they're singing, they're praying, but while there's moments of silence, I try to keep those times sacred so that they can literally pray internally during those times and not having to be distracted by something like, oh, turn to this page next, or here's the next thing. I try to work it so that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
A little of that goes on, especially if we get thrown a curveball somehow liturgically, Sometimes we have to, grab a hymn book and flip through it real quick and get somewhere.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite liturgy, like that you enjoy playing?
Midnight Mass is my favorite. Christmas Midnight Mass is my favorite liturgy.
Why's that?
It's hard to say. It's in the middle of the night, and it's so quiet, and I think it's more the feeling that I'm left with actually when I'm on my way home after Mass. The peacefulness and the quietness of the city and the peacefulness and quietness that I feel inside myself, it makes that Mass my favorite.
Well, it makes a lot of people, it's their favorite because, the cathedral is full.
It's full.
Every midnight. It's amazing to see downtown Tulsa alive right around the cathedral.
Yep.
And light blazing out of those windows from all those people there.
Yeah, Midnight Mass is a beautiful liturgy.
I know. We have we don't have small children anymore, but we did have children that were small, so we could never go. But I think our plan is try to do that this year.
Great.
Try Midnight Mass, yes. So, our podcast is called Glory Be, Interesting People and How They Pray. And, we've kind of talked about, your favorite liturgy and praying. You mentioned when your choir sings, they're praying. How do you pray?
I personally use the Liturgy of the Hours for my personal prayer. It's a book called Christian Prayer, which is sort of a condensed, a little less complicated version of the Liturgy of the Hours that the priests and deacons and a lot of lay people use the Liturgy of the Hours. But it's sort of a condensed. Yeah. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, very much so. So, I've got a couple copies at home.
Yeah, and I really like that. It's a little more condensed.
So do you do the morning? Do you do all or just morning and evening?
It's set up morning and evening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually clerics promise to pray the 4-volume set. So there's all the prayers for the saint of the day and all that kind of stuff. And Christian prayer sometimes gets around that, but it's nice because you just start praying on page 852. And you pray until 870 and you're done.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of flipping. Yeah,
yes,
that gets complicated.
Yes. Oh, I didn't realize that. I've always wanted to learn, and I kind of know, but, it is a little confusing. It can be.
It is, yeah.
So, Christian Prayer, that's the name of the volume?
Yeah. And it's one book. It's one book. It's not 4.
Okay. Yeah, now, do you sing it when you pray it?
No, I don't. I just read it internally.
Okay. Now, when you were growing up, you grew up Baptist, they don't have Liturgy of the Hours, or did your family, were they a church-going group? Did you pray together?
Yes.
So you grew up with faith?
Yes. My dad was a pastor, Southern Baptist pastor, and so we were very much involved, and we prayed a lot together. Baptists, especially Baptists, they extemporize prayer. There's nothing written down that we would read. So, we would say prayers together and they would be extemporized, and we would just pray whatever kind of came to your heart and mind in that way. And there was a lot of that. We prayed before meals and prayed before bed and prayed, just about all the time.
Yeah.
My parents were very big on that, which is great. I love that.
Now, were they okay that you became Catholic? Or?
They thought when I went to that Anglican church, that's when they thought I became Catholic. So they kind of got over it.
Okay.
And it wasn't really, they're like, well, that sounds Catholic. And I said, well, it's not. Yeah. But the shock came then.
Yeah.
Not when I went to Christ the King and went through RCIA and actually became a Catholic. They said, well, we thought you already were, is what they said.
Oh, that's funny.
So
Do they ever come watch you play or?
not my mother has passed away. But because my dad was a pastor, he always had duties on Sundays. And so it was extremely rare that they were able to come. I think they maybe heard me play one church service when I was in graduate school. But when I was in graduate school at TU, I was the organist at College Hill Presbyterian. So they've not heard me play a Catholic liturgy. But that little Presbyterian church is somewhat liturgical in its approach. They have lots of responsive readings and things like that. But unfortunately, no, they've not heard much.
What did they think about you being an organist?
At first, they said, they didn't think that was a viable option for a living.
Yes.
And so they said, well, what are you going to fall back on? And I said, well, hopefully there won't be any falling back. So I just pursued my dream. And by the grace of God, things came all together for me.
Yes.
Well, there's a shortage of organists right now, isn't there?
It's getting better.
Yeah.
What's happening is sort of a polarization in academia. There was a time, like in the mid-20th century, every small university had an organ program and an organ because it was widespread. Then in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it all started to shrink. And then in the 90s, a lot of those, by the 90s, a lot of those small universities had done away with their organ programs and their instruments. And so what's happened now, if you want to study organ, you probably will wind up at a larger school, like, for instance, University of North Texas in Denton, Texas, has a magnificent organ program. Southern Methodist University in Texas. KU in Lawrence, Kansas, has a fantastic organ program.
Did OU have one and then they
OU still, I think, has one. They had an organ building and maintenance program.
Oh.
And I think I may be misspeaking here, but I think the funding for that program was cut. I think they still have an organ degree there.
Okay.
But the American Organ Institute that they had going, I think, is no more, unfortunately. Because that was a really good program.
I remember seeing something about that a few years ago. That's too bad.
Yeah, it is too bad. But there are still a lot of people studying organ, and more now are starting to study it again.
What would you do with a degree in organ if you didn't play it for a church?
Probably teach.
Oh, right. Of course.
Probably academia.
Keep that going.
Probably get a doctorate degree and teach in a university.
Okay. So we're in the kind of part of our podcast where we're talking about prayer. So I digressed asking you about all this technique. It's very interesting to me to hear about playing the organ and what people do and that you are. I have a son who's interested in music, and so I'm kind of like you were describing your parents. Well, like if that doesn't work out, but I love that you followed your dream, God's prompting. So, one question that we like to ask our guests is, has there ever been a time in your life when it's been difficult to pray?
Yes. Many times, actually. Probably it was very difficult when my mom passed away. That was a difficult time for me spiritually. But even though I got angry and ignored God for a while, He didn't get angry and ignore me back. Thank God for that. He's always there waiting for us to come back to Him, and is open-armed, and will even reach out and lead us back to Him if we wait and look for that. If we look for His outstretched arms and hand, we'll find it. But yeah, when my mom died, I had a pretty difficult time. Luckily, it didn't last too long, but
Yeah, that's a common theme we hear from some of our guests.
Yeah, I'm
you
sure.
know that.
yeah.
Yeah, especially during COVID and all of that. You know, it's I love what you mentioned, because if we keep at it, and even when we're not looking, God's searching for us. It's a comforting.
It is.
Comforting.
And just to know that he's always there and the Eucharist is always there. It's just a matter of us, taking that one step forward.
So the classic conclusion of our podcast is the one question we ask everybody.
Okay.
If you could ask the entire world to join you in a single prayer intention, what would that prayer intention be?
I would say, excuse me, I would say that my prayer intention would be that we could all learn to really and truly love each other on a profound level. Because love, to me, the opposite of love is not hate, but fear. And to me, fear produces and feeds hate. And so the only way to negate that and to do away with that would just be to be able to love each other beyond, profound, deep love and respect for each other would do away with fear, which would in turn do away with hate. And I think, to quote a song, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's not a liturgical song, but
We won't hear that at the ordination.
we won't hear that at
Okay.
the ordination.
All right. Yeah.
But that would be my prayer
Yeah.
for the whole world,
Yeah.
is that we could learn to love each other better.
Yeah, to really do it.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, would you lead us in a Glory Be?
Sure.
We'll close out the podcast with that.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As
it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Glory Be is a production of the Office of Communications at the Church of St. Mary. I'm Mike Malcolm, your producer. See you next week.